Hello, everyone, and welcome to Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today I'm going to be interviewing Sue Willoughby. Super excited to have her on the show. We're going to be talking about her equine therapy, and she is a local here in Washington State over in Enumclaw, so that's even better. Love to host my locals. A little bit about Sue, for those of you who aren't aware, is the founder of Willoughby Coaching, where women over 40 confront their obstacles and change the trajectory of their lives through the power of Equus Coaching. Equus Coaching emphasizes the profound impact of nonverbal communication and self-awareness as clients engage with horses, gaining insights into their leadership, communication style, and personal growth. Sue took great comfort in working with horses during some of the darkest times. Sue, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to host you.
Liz, thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. I always like to ask my guests, what is it that brought you to what you're doing today?
Oh, how long is your show? So many things, Liz. So many things brought me here. From the for the horse perspective, they've always been a thread in my life. I've always been drawn to them. I think a lot of girls go through a horsey phase when they're younger. I just never grew out of it. They got me through some hard times, as you mentioned in the intro, and they've just always been a constant in my life. From the time I was a little girl, seeing them in my backyard drinking out of my kiddie pool, I thought for sure they were there for me, and they weren't. They just had escaped from the ranch down the street. So I just I found so much. They're so attentive and so intuitive, and they heal you without you even asking for it. It's really pretty amazing. I don't know if you've been had spent much time around horses or are familiar with them, but
Yes, I have spent a little time with horses when my children were little. Before my third son, I worked for Horse Harbor Foundation on the peninsula, and that was really fun to volunteer and do some riding with them and learn about the horses, which is why this interview also intrigued me because I think that there's a time in my future when I would like to go back to that. There, we have a lot of horses and farms on the island here and different things. And you were saying when we were talking before the show, Sue, that you actually did some training here on the island.
I did. Yes, Northwest Animal Massage is located on Vashon Island, and they do small and large animal massage training and certification. And I was out there I did an anatomy class with them and did some hands-on massage there as well. And the rest of my training was in down near Portland, in Vancouver, Washington. But yes, it's a beautiful facility out there in Vashon, and I highly recommend it if anyone is interested in animal massage in general, whether it be large or small animal.
Now, you had mentioned in your bio that horses were a part of your life as a child. And one of the topics that's really up right now is inner child work. Can you share with us a little bit about what your upbringing was like and how you've used horses to heal that part of yourself?
Good question. Yeah, I grew up, I mean, my parents were together until I was probably about 11 or so. As parents will do, they think they're doing their kids a favor by staying together, and that's not always the case. So my parents stayed together for my benefit. I'm an only child, and I chose to go live with my mom, who was an alcoholic. So it was challenging for me. I grew up really quickly. I never knew what to expect. And when I was around horses, I felt safe. I felt at home. I would literally make my mom drive me. I grew up in upstate New York, and I would make her drive me to the barn. I didn't care if there was like 3 feet of snow. And I would just literally stay there all day. I would sit in their stalls. I would watch them. I even ate their grain. All right. That was a little weird, but it tasted so good. It was that molassesy kind with you know, so I was like all in. And then I would just get on them and ride, and we'd go for trail rides. And it just felt, it was like my safe space. It was my happy place for sure. And I think at the time I didn't really understand why. I just knew that it felt good. And I was always thrilled to be there and just be in the company of horses. And then as I got sort of older in my teen years, I found a summer camp that was advertising for program directors in their horse program. And I didn't even know what that was, but I'm like, yep, I could do that. So I hand wrote them a letter. We're talking like in the 70s. So I hand wrote them a letter and they hand wrote me a letter back or called or whatever. I can't remember. And I went to summer camp and I worked in their horseback riding program. And it was a therapeutic riding program, which at the time I didn't even know what that was. I'm like, okay, it was a camp for individuals with varying, special needs. Um, Physical, emotional, mental, whatever. And we did a writing program and it was super fun. We were out in the sun for like 10 hours a day, being surrounded by flies and dust and all kind of stuff that most people would be like, ew, gross. I'm like, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I went back summer after summer to do the program and it was just amazing. And I started to kind of get the idea of, oh, yeah, these individuals are really benefiting by being around the horses. Now, not all of the campers were thrilled to be around the horses, but even the ones that weren't, that were a little afraid, the horses can understand that and they can take anything into account. And they get like connected in your heart space and in a biological, in a biorhythm kind of a way, and they don't care who you are, what you have going on, what clothes you're wearing, or anything else about you. They just need to know that you are connecting with them on a way where they're going to be safe, and because you're part of their herd when you're in their proximity, so to speak.
Nice. What is it about the horse that makes equine therapy so powerful? What are the benefits? And what is it about the horse, like you're saying, where they help us to tap in, to our physical selves?
Yeah, that's a great question. The biggest part of it is the fact that, and this comes as a surprise to people because I get a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm afraid of horses because they're big and they're powerful and they're majestic and I'm intrigued, but I'm also afraid." What a lot of people don't realize is that horses are prey animals. In the wild, they are prey to other creatures, right? So every cell in their body is tuned into awareness. They are constantly monitoring their surroundings through all of their senses, through smell, through hearing, through their skin. I mean, if a fly lands on a horse's butt, it can just twitch a little tiny piece of skin on its butt and scare the fly off. But they're so tuned into their awareness, they are in the moment at all times. And it's great because, like I mentioned, that they don't judge you. They allow you to be yourself and they meet you where you are. So when you come into their space, they're going to assess what is really going on with this person. Do I feel safe around them? Do they feel threatening to me? Because, like I said, you're part of their herd, right? And they look to their other herd members for leadership, for guidance, for, hey, what's going on over there? I heard this noise. Did you hear it? And the other horse is like, yeah, I heard it. Let's get out of here. Uh, so they're looking to you for that kind of guidance. And they don't see the facade that you come into the arena with. We all have a facade that is how we want people to see us, right? Whatever that may be. Horses don't see that. They see through all that right to your core, and they really encourage you to bring out your true self. So, for example, how do they bring us into our bodies? Well, as humans, we walk around, we're all up in our head all the time. It's like, we're telling ourselves stories. We are imagining how people are seeing us. We're worried about this. We're worried about that. And horses don't bring any of that to the table. And so they see through all of that and they connect with us, like I said, on more of a biological level. So when I'm asking someone a question, when they're in the arena with the horse, what they're feeling, they may come back with a word, right? Because it's coming out of their head, it's not coming out of their heart or their body. And if they say, I'm mad, okay, well, you're mad. What does mad feel like? And they look at me like, what do you mean? What does it feel like? Well, where do you feel angry? Or when you feel anger, where does it show up in your body? So it encourages people to get more grounded and look at their physical self and feel their emotions rather than just express them, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. What was it in your life that you gained from this? What did you find in yourself as you were transitioning from what you were doing before into horse therapy? How did the horse
Mhm.
heal you?
Well, as I mentioned, horses have been with me throughout my life in one capacity or another. And over the course of time, I'm a little bit of a slow study sometimes. So over the course of my spiritual and emotional journey, they have taught me patience. They have taught me awareness. They've taught me acceptance. And I think patience for me was always a big one. I was very reactive. I angered very quickly. I had a really bad temper. And a lot of that, I think, just came from the way I grew up and never knowing what to expect and just being, protective and defensive, I think. And with horses, they don't understand that you have an agenda. They don't, that's not their realm of comprehension. So if you go in with the horse and you're just trying to push them around and push your agenda on them, they're like, wait, whoa, wait, I don't understand. What do you want? So through patience of communication and building awareness and building it also in relationship, how am I showing up with this person, right? Because then you can take your relationship building skills out of the arena and into your real life because you have to have communication. Now, horses are nonverbal communicators. Now, they do nicker and whinny and all that kind of good stuff, and that's always fun to hear. But they sense things and they will respond in kind with their own body language. So it really tunes you in to nonverbal communication. And like I said, being patient. And if you're trying to get a horse to do something and you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and getting the same response, guess what? You need to try something different. So it helps you think outside the box. It opens you up to new possibilities. And so that's a little bit of it.
For sharing that. I also want to highlight too, you didn't always do this. So talk about
No.
your transition from being in the corporate world or doing other things to what you're doing now, because I think that there's a story there that will help other people, including myself, who have gone through something like this during a big transition in my life. So talk about your transition, what that was like for you, Sue.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. I've had a lot of transitions. I guess the buzzword these days is pivot. I've pivoted a lot. Um, and the way I grew up, like I said, was my comfort zone was really discomfort, not ever knowing. So I was always trying new things. I was never one to be stuck in one position for a very long time. I'm always aware and curious. I'm very curious about what is around me, much like a horse. But when I decided to leave corporate America, it just did not. I mean, I had a great six-figure job. I was a mentor, trainer, instructional designer. So I was always in the field of training and development and those kinds of things that are, curious by nature. Anyway, but to be honest with you, I'm not set up for doing one thing ever. And even when I had a full-time corporate job, I always had some side hustle, right? Whether it was horses or whether it was starting a dog treat company or whatever. But I just couldn't take it anymore. I would, Sunday afternoon, I'd start getting really bummed out. And then Monday morning would roll around. I'm like, oh my God, I have to go into the office. Like, ugh. So I just said, and I had also studied and was a certified equine massage therapist. And that was part of one of my, I was doing that on the side. But I decided to go into real estate. I'm like, what the heck? I had my real estate license for a couple of years before I actually left corporate America. I just couldn't bring myself to do that same thing day in, day out. And I like things that change and are unpredictable because I'm okay in that space. Not everyone is. And I think, though, that when people reach a certain point, like you said, you're in a transformational phase. And it's sometimes hard to let go of that identity that you may have had, whatever it is, whether it's a corporate executive or whether it is, whatever, an engineer. I don't want to be an engineer. I want to be an artist. We get very focused and associated with a certain identity, a mom, a wife, a mother, whatever it is. And to step out of that, you have to be okay with being a beginner again or taking an entry level position. And even if that entry level position is a fun thing or a new thing that you want to try, you're still a beginner. And I think that scares the heck out of some people to try something new. And like I said, that's kind of my nature, is to be curious and adventurous, and not everyone is. So not everyone is going to jump out of an airplane and then quit a high-paying six-figure job and to go do real estate, and then pursue something else after that. But it's all about giving yourself permission to be a beginner. I think that is a huge part of it. So I don't know if you're dealing with that right now.
Yeah, I've been dealing with that since about 2018, maybe even before, going through a transition, through a divorce. Then I'm going through the divorce and I'm looking, I'm like, okay, here's how I identified myself, mother of, wife of, and then where do I go from there? And I looked at my life, I'm like, I was caretaking so much that I didn't even know what brought me joy and happiness or what I wanted to do with my life. I had some ideas, but nothing I had really put into motion. So afterwards, it was a journey of self-discovery. Who am I? What do I want to do? What makes me happy? What brings me joy? What lights me up? And then just kind of adding to that list as I went along. And I think that a lot of our listeners will resonate with this because it's that midlife time, no matter where you are in that stage, where you could run into this like, oh my gosh, I've been in the corporate world for so long. What do I do now? Or I want to leave that and do something else. So, how do you help people? How do you coach them if they're finding themselves in this type of a situation?
Well, Liz, it's similar to what you just described for yourself, right? It doesn't happen overnight and there is no magic pill. It's a lot of curiosity and building awareness around the fact that A, you're not happy in the situation that you're in, and re getting to, re-identifying yourself. Like you said, I think for women, we tend to be caretakers, whatever situation we're in. I mean, even in like work situations, we want to make sure that, and I used to be that way too. I was like, oh, I want to make sure everybody else is happy, everybody's well taken care of. Meanwhile, I'm depleted and resentful and whatever else I was. So I think it's just really being okay to do some self-examination. And first of all, you have to say, are you willing to do that? Do you want to go through some potentially difficult steps to create a new life for yourself, or at least find out what that might be? And then it's tiny little baby steps. It's not about like, okay, yeah, I want to go from being a surgeon to being a, underwater basket weaver, or I don't know, some crazy thing like that, right? Um, Whatever it is you think you might be interested in, just start exploring it. Start getting curious about it. And I think curiosity is really important. Like, why do I not feel great in my job anymore? Or what am I going to do now that the kids are out of the house? And well, I don't know. Think about it. Well, like, in your case, what were some of the things that, you know, that you had to process, that you had to sort of start thinking about? Like you said, what lights me up? I think, we get so detached and removed from that because A, we may have been taking care of ourselves for a long time or taking care of others for ourselves and not ourselves. So start with yourself and really sit in where you are and start imagining what are some of the things that I could be doing. And if you trust that when you take that step, there will be a stone there for you to step onto, then that's a really good start. But you have to want to do the work, and I think that that really is important because it's not, like I said, anything is work, right? But it can be fun, and finding the fun in the work is where it's at, where I enjoy being.
That's nice. I'm glad you brought up fun too, because that's a component of that curiosity. And I've spoken about curiosity in the past and getting curious about life. So thank you for speaking to that, Sue, because I think it's was an important part of my process was to really get into that curiosity piece and really, kind of discover what it was. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And the fun, how do we bring fun to our life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had a client that came to me with that exact problem. I don't feel like I'm having fun anymore. There's no joy in my life. And my question is, what does that feel like to you? What does it feel like? Once again, going back into your body, what does it feel like? Because everything that we've experienced and, you know, whether good, bad, or indifferent is all in our bodies. And we have to be able to access that and from a somatic level. And what does joy and fun feel like? When we were a kid, running through a field was fun. Doing some, you know, I had a slip and slide. I don't, I'm kind of dating myself now, but it was like basically a plastic strip of paper you hook a hose to, and all the kids in the neighborhood would come and slide down on the wet, piece of plastic in my front yard. And that was fun. We don't think about what is fun when we're kids. We just do stuff. We just we just are. We are just being. When we get older, we have to analyze everything and, so I'm at a point in my life where if I don't enjoy it, if it doesn't bring me some sort of joy and make me feel good physically and emotionally, why bother? Why bother wasting time on something that's not going to make me feel good?
Oh, I like that you pointed that out because I think that's important because we can go through life doing these things that we don't enjoy, and that doesn't move you forward. That doesn't
Hmm.
move your heart forward, and what you want to do. You spoke a little about having that stone to step on. And I think that hangs people up is that fear to take that step.
Yes. And it can be fear of so many things. I mean, fear is different and presents itself differently to everyone. A lot of that taking that first step or taking a step towards something that is maybe unfamiliar to you brings up a lot of fear. It's like fear of failing, fear that that the stone is not going to be there, fear of what other people are going to think. And I think that that is a lot. That's a huge thing for most people. Um, am I going to look silly? Am I, I'm going to be a beginner. I'm going to look foolish. What are people going to think of me? And what if I don't like it? What if I want to try something new? Then people are going to think I'm wishy-washy. A lot of the fear is about what other people think and not so much that it's real fear, like I'm going to get hurt doing this, or it's potentially physically dangerous to me. And that's why horses, I'm going to bring the horse back in. Horses process everything as information. They are, like I said, constantly pulling in bits of information from their surroundings, sensory information, and analyzing it and then letting it go. Am I safe? Okay, fine. I'll go back to grazing. Am I not safe? Okay, what are my options? Do I need to flee? Do I need to get out of this situation? What are my friends doing? Are they running already and I'm standing there like an idiot? Um, but they don't hold on to stuff. It's like take things in, process it, trust your gut, and then move on. And we have a hard time with that. We have a hard time, especially with letting go. It's like, no, it's a story. And horses don't stand around the watering hole going, "Did you see the other day when that bucket was outside my stall and I had to walk past it? That thing freaked me out." What stupid little things like that. We get worried about the craziest things and we hang on to the craziest things. So, uh, you know, that's the horse in me.
Love that too. And you highlighted how we hold on to our stories. And I think that's part of it too. We cannot move forward if we're consistently holding on to our stories. Yeah. How do you
Yep.
use this type of therapy with the horse? I've listened to a couple of your
How,
interviews. You're not having people get on the horse.
okay.
They're in
No.
working with the horse. So how do we work with,
Yeah.
you know, we've got the horse, we're, in the arena or wherever it might be. And how does that
Mhm.
tell you, you know, if a person's holding on to a story or if they're holding fear or they're not able to move forward?
I asked the horse. No, all kidding aside, well, sort of. So the person is in the same space as the horse. I'm usually on the outside of the arena or the round pen or whatever, and I am an active observer of what's going on. So I mean, just to set things up, I will ask the person to set an intention for the session, like what would you like to take away from this? And sometimes it ends up being the same thing that they work on in the arena. And sometimes it quickly evolves into what is really going on and really getting into cutting to the chase. So once they've set their intention and they've gone through their safety demo and everything, I'll ask them to interact with the horse however they see fit. Now, they're not riding. The horse is completely at liberty, unless, of course, they choose to do an exercise that involves the horse being with a halter and a lead rope. But typically, the horse is free to roam around the arena and be a horse. They're just being a horse. Period. The end. And am watching and observing how the person is interacting to the horse. Maybe they're saying something. Maybe they're not. Um, how they approach the horse. What the horse's reaction is to the person's action. Okay, so I'm looking at the horse, and the horse is giving me very specific feedback. The feedback's not directed at me, it's directed at the person. I'm just observing what they're doing. The horse may be staying away from this person because the horse may be sensing something about the person that is not matching up. It's not, they're incongruent with what's going on inside of them. And so I'm watching the interaction and maybe asking some open-ended questions like, what are you observing from the horse? And sometimes the person, by whatever they say or do, it will be really obvious with what's going on with them. They may say something like, well, the horse is ignoring me. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, tell me more. Well, the horse is way over there. They don't like me. They're bored with me. And la, 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 any kind of whatever story is going on in their head, they're going to transfer it to the horse, right? They're going to put it on the horse. They're going to project it onto the horse. And the horse is like, dude, I'm just standing here. I'm just being myself. So it's really interesting to say, okay, well, what, as you're approaching this horse, what are you seeing? Or what are you feeling? Well, I feel nervous, or I feel upset, or I'm scared. Okay. And How are you conveying that to the horse? Well, so I get them to try and be in their body, and maybe that takes a little bit of grounding. And we try and do some grounding exercises before we go into the arena, just so that everybody feels a little bit more comfortable. But talking about things, and then sometimes the horse can become a metaphor for a person or a situation in their life that they, are going through. And the horse is very non-threatening, so they can have that nonverbal communication with the horse and actually feel their connection with them. And that's when you can see everything sort of fall away. Like, for example, if somebody's really holding on to something emotional, and I'm not going to say deep trauma because I'm not a trauma coach and I don't intend to be, but someone may be holding on to something, and maybe it's an issue at work or whatever, and they're trying really hard to put up that wall. Once they can realize that they're not in a situation where they're being judged, where the horse is not going to lie to them. The horses don't know how to lie. They only know how to be honest. And if you can connect with that honesty and let down your guard, then the horse is going to give you exactly what you need. And if that is boundary issues, the horse is going to push your boundaries. It's really funny that they know what you need, and they will be there to provide what you need.
That's so interesting. And I like how you pointed out the physical, because you're highlighting that how
Hmm.
the horse is reading the body and the body holds on
Hmm.
so much. And
Yeah.
it this building awareness of their physical senses, but not only that, but what they may be storing in their body.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because before we react to something, we have a physical sensation, and we gloss over that most of the time, and we just react, whatever it is, with anger, with, words. And the horses teach us that patience to process that information. So, like I said before we cry, there's a sensation in our body. Before we get angry, there's a sensation in our body. Before we react, there is a biological feeling and physical reaction to what is about to happen. So, if you can take that moment to feel that emotion, that reaction, you can then say, you know, be curious about it. Okay, well, why is my heart beating so rapidly? Why do I feel sick to my stomach? What about this situation is bringing that up for me? And then you can maybe tailor your reaction to the situation to say, okay, it's just information, right? And that's all the horses are doing. They're just taking in information. Every emotion, everything that we experience is just data that we collect and process. And that's what horses do. They collect and process and let go. Collect, process, let go. And if we can learn anything by being around them, and you don't need a horse, it just gives you immediate feedback. Um, but if we can start to incorporate that in our own lives, where you have a situation, somebody cuts you off in line or cuts in front of you in line, which your immediate reaction might be like, "Hey, you jerk, what the heck?" Rather than saying, maybe let me just, is this going to be a life or death situation here? Somebody cut in front of me at line? No, they're not. It's not going to be. And you can say, well, maybe they have a good reason for doing that or something. It just gives you the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to say it, I'm not perfect. No, but it's a constant work in process. But just starting to build that awareness of, why am I having such a visceral reaction to this person, this thing, this situation? Oh, yeah, okay. And then you can kind of feel that that somatic, that, that physical sense, like, okay, I feel a lot of pressure in my chest. So I will ask people, where do you feel that? Can you remember that feeling when you have that emotion or that reaction? And then change your outward reaction accordingly. So I think that that's a big part. It's just being curious about the information and how you're processing it.
It's funny when you were talking, I was thinking back. I just got back from Jazz Fest last week, and I'm standing in line at Jazz Fest with my water bottle, and there's many of us in line. And this guy walks up, with his family and just kind of scoots himself like right beside us in the line. And I'm like, okay, I'm having an emotional reaction about this. I was getting curious. I'm like, all right, here's one of those moments in life where I am annoyed that I've been standing in line and then somebody just tries to eke in just kind of by standing by me, and is going to merge, and there's people behind me. And I'm like, all right. So I've got like my survival skills like are being triggered. Like, I'm going to reach the water. It's all right. We're all going to reach the water no matter what. And then I'm curious, like, so why did he feel like that was okay? And then I was thinking, okay, he must be really thirsty. It's really hot. Like, and then going through like what might his reasons for doing that be? And it's funny how we can kind of
Mm.
walk ourselves through this and get curious about, all right, here am I. Here's my feelings. Here's what's been triggered in me. What's going on with him? What's triggered in him? And, what is he possibly thinking? It's really fascinating. I'm glad that you pointed that out because it's it's a beneficial process to get us out of that trigger for one, and that curiosity that you've been talking about throughout the interview to like the why in me and why in them. And then I like how you use the horses to help the people try to figure out what's going on within them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that about the guy cutting in line. Uh, Yes. And like I said, the immediate reaction is like, hey, you jerk. I've been standing here for half an hour. There's 25 people behind me. Get in line. I mean, or, you might be a little playful about it. Like, dude, you must be really thirsty. There's like 25 people back there also waiting in line. And sometimes people don't realize, right? Oh, shoot, I didn't know, right? And sometimes people are just wanting to cut the line. So there's that, but it's all how we approach it. You can get mad. You can have that one thing ruin your jazz fest, right? And then you can go back to your friends and go, you know what? I was standing in line and this jerk cut in front of me with his whole family of 10 people and I just wanted to choke him, right? You can come and then you can create the story, or you can be like, well, get in line, get your water. I don't care, whatever. It's not going to ruin my day, right? That's how horses communicate. They go over, they're trying to eat off somebody else's hay pile, and the horse that was there first is like, "Oh hell no," and they might nip at him, they might turn around and kick at him, and the horse is like, "Message received. Thank you very much. I'm gonna find a different hay pile to eat off of." So, you know, you could have kicked him or bit him too.
Oh gosh, if we
I'm sorry, that's what a horse would do.
get But I let it slide. I'm just like, oh, I'm not going to let it ruin my day. Onward, I'm looking up there. There's 10 spigots. We're all scooting in. Everything's all right. And we all got our water and we're fine. No biting and kicking
Yes.
involved or having to talk to him whatsoever, which is also fine. Why engage if we don't have to? Enjoying the sunshine,
Right.
enjoying the heat. I'm almost to the water.
Yeah.
Everybody's good. Everybody's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also advocate for
It's a
stepping
great attitude
out
to
of
have.
comfort zone. What's that, Sue?
Oh no, I said, and that's a great attitude to have because it didn't ruin your day,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so often we can
So
let,
stepping out of my comfort zone.
yeah, ruin our day. Yeah. So if we
Yeah.
not ruin our day and step out of our comfort zone, so you've been stepping out of your comfort zone. You advocate for stepping out of your comfort zone. What are some strategies that you can suggest to our listeners to help them with that?
Yeah, here I go again, back to the curiosity. Uh, I have always been like if something presents itself to me. I don't know. Maybe I have undiagnosed ADHD. I don't know, probably, but whatever. I'm just curious by nature, and maybe that's because I kind of grew up without a lot of adult supervision, so I kind of just did whatever I wanted to do. That might be part of it. But I would say if you're not curious by nature, get curious. There's always something tugging at you. Take take off your blinders, take off your tunnel vision glasses, and look around. And a great way to start being aware is to be more present. Go and that's why they do stuff like forest bathing or whatever. Go for a hike or go somewhere in nature and don't just like, I gotta get this hike out of the way. I'm gonna just hammer through this hike and get it done. Take your time, look around. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? Bring a lot of times before I start a session, sometimes if I'm doing a retreat or with a group, we'll do like a sensory, a census, do a meditation with our senses. Like, what are five things that you hear? What are four things that you see? What are, where it gets people tuned into their senses so that does activate your curiosity by, what am I hearing? What am I seeing? Oh, what do I smell? Because I think a lot of times we just shut all that stuff off and just go through our day. And, like you, even with the water, back to the water again. You paused, you looked around, you're like, it's a beautiful sunny day. There's 10 spigots there. We're all going to get our water. And yeah, that's okay. So the same thing with the comfort zone. I was at a silent retreat, and I never in a million years thought I would ever do that. But I was at a silent retreat. So I was like, I'm all in this thing. I'm going in with an open mind and open heart, and I'm going to do it. And I had a roommate that I didn't know, and our room was weirdly in behind. We had to go through the bathroom that we shared with other people to get to our room, which is a little awkward. Enough of that. Anyway, we were doing this one, it was a walking meditation where we were out in a field. Everybody picked a spot, and you'd walk 10 paces in one direction and then 10 paces in another direction. And then, and if you were interrupted by a thought, like in any meditation, right, you had to stop, let it go, and then move on. So it was very experiential. It really did heighten our senses. And I remember every time I would take a step and then some, crazy thought or story would come into my mind and I'd have to stop and let it go. Finally, I got to the point where I said, wow, I'm it's a beautiful summer day. I'm standing in this field. I'm walking barefoot through this grass. The sun is shining down on me. I'm not at my desk. I'm not in my office. I am so fortunate to be here. And that was like stepping out of my comfort zone, right? Just like experiencing something for what it really was. And I think, like I said, once again, it cracks you open to say, okay, this is really cool. I'm giving myself permission to be present, to try something new. And that is, you can take a tiny little step and try something different to get out of your comfort zone. Maybe you always park in the same spot when you go to work, park somewhere different. Maybe you always put your yoga mat down in the same spot at the yoga studio. God forbid somebody should be in your spot, you may lose it, right? Put your mat somewhere else. Just little things. Take a different route home from work. You might see something that you've never seen before. Or if you're on a walk and it's the same walk, look around. Find five new things that you've never spotted before. These are like weird little easy ways to get out of your comfort zone.
Thank you for highlighting all of those. And you also mentioned way earlier in the beginning of the interview a little snippet about jumping out of a plane. And I think that was definitely you jumping out of your comfort zone, literally out of a plane.
Yes, absolutely. When I decided to leave corporate America, I had a bunch of real estate investor folks, and they'd been bugging me, come skydiving with us, come skydiving with us. I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah. Now, I am a also a private pilot, or not, I'm out of whatever currency, but I have flown small planes before, and so I'm like, yeah, okay, flying small planes, not jumping out of them. But I went, and it was fun, and it was definitely a metaphor for taking a giant leap into something completely new and different, and it was a blast. Not everybody, it's not for everyone, but yes, it was fun. I was like, hey, let's just do this. So we did, and we had a great time.
That's awesome. I considered it for a hot minute post divorce. I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump out of a plane. I'm going to do this. I've always wanted to do it. And then, it kept on getting set back, set back, set back. And then I came to the realization that that's really not something that I want to do. And probably standing at the door, probably have a panic attack and pass out. So I never ended up doing it. And I'm totally okay with the fact that I never ended up doing it. But good for you,
It's
Sue,
not for everyone.
there and do that. That was a little too far out of my comfort zone. So what do you do for people? You work with people. What do you do for someone who's like, oh my gosh, I am in so much fear. I can't step out of my comfort zone. Like, what is it that I can do, Sue, to get curious, step out of fear, figure out what my new identity is, tap into my physical body and really, kind of be a leader for myself to push myself to do these things if I am finding myself in transition?
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a good question. One tiny step at a time for just to start off with. Like I said, just pick one thing. And I think that that is another reason that people have a hard time starting something new is they look at it as this giant thing. Like, I want a new career. What does that entail? Well, let's break it down, or let's, it you have to have a foundation for something. Don't look at the huge be all end all picture. And you may not even have a clear idea of what that is. So first of all, like if there is something you want to do, get curious. Like I said, take a tiny step. Find a coach, find someone who can help you with this. Because like for me, like working out, for example, it's not my forte. I have done it. I like to go where there's other people doing the same thing that I'm doing, that are going through the same experience that I'm going through, and someone is there telling me or guiding me on what I'm going to do next. Because if I go to the gym, I sit on a piece of equipment, I'm going to do like 3 presses and I'll be like, okay, that's enough. And then I leave. So I think finding your community or finding your coach and get an accountability buddy. If it's something that you really want to do, like maybe you want to learn to, you know, do some cycling. Maybe I used to love riding my bike when I was younger or whatever, and I haven't done it for such a long time. Find a buddy, or find a coach or do something like that. Do some research. You don't have to do anything, but research is a tiny step. So if you're curious about something, we have the Googles. You can Google it. Find out more. Is there some place in my neighborhood or in my town that offers X, Y, or Z, whatever it is that I'm interested in? Can I take a class? Can I take an online workshop? I encourage maybe in-person thing if you can do that now that it's not the pandemic. Do some exploratory research. And then if you're like, oh, I guess I really don't like that after all, like you, jumping out of a plane is really not what I want to do. So I'll do something else instead. But just be curious and start to do some research. That is a great tiny step. And you're going to find out some more things. You're going to find out more things. You might find a place to do that. Let's say you want to be a public speaker. Where can I, find out more about that? But I think just doing some online research is a great way to start getting the creative juices flowing. And then finding your tribe, finding your community, even if it's a community of 1 or 2 people, go to a meetup or something. Bring a friend. It's funny when I have retreats. a lot of times people will bring a friend because maybe they don't want to come alone or whatever. So they drag some poor friend that's willing to support them on their journey. Guess who ends up having a really good time and having the biggest transformation?
The friend.
The friend that got dragged
Awesome.
along.
That's fantastic. And so many great suggestions. Sue, thank you for that. As we come to a close today, how can people reach you? What do you offer? And how can they find you?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is on my website, willoughbycoaching.com. I'm also on Instagram and all the, other stuff, LinkedIn and so forth. But on Instagram, it's Sue_Willoughby, and that's on Instagram. And I offer retreats. I offer one-on-one coaching with horses. I offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching with and without horses. And it can start out just as easily as a 2 week, kind of a mini container where we do some exploration and, do some Voxer communication or something like that. But just, go to my website, see what I have to offer and reach out. We can start with a quick 20-minute call. Like, is this even for you? It's not a coaching call. It's just like, hey, what are you looking to get out of life? And take it from there.
Perfect. And I always ask one final question, Sue. What is a jewel of wisdom that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
Um, don't stop being curious, and you're never too old to start or try something new. And don't let your crazy monkey brain talk you out of it. I guess that was like three pieces of wisdom, but
Perfect. I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Sue. What a great thing to end on. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure to host you. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for
thank you for having me.
yeah. Again, I'm Liz Peterson, Sue Willoughby. Look her up, have that 20-minute curiosity call with her, and follow her on social media as well. I've got some new things going on. I'm starting Meditation Monday. All you have to do is show up for free at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All of the links and the Zoom codes are on social media. I've also got Full Moon Yoga Nidra that I'm going to be hosting online. You can find that on Eventbrite and all links in my bio. So you can find me on my website, raisethevibewithliz.com, and on social media at Raise the Vibe. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Get out there and raise the vibe and have a great day, everybody. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Sue.